The first round, Sunday nights, 74 players got selected day one of the draft. Day two kicks off today. The Phillies had 2 picks in the first day, and so that 27th pick was none other, as we talked about, Dante Nori, who has a really great story. Nori's got a story, guys. Nori actually was, as a high schooler, coming in, there's a few things here. So one, for Brian Barber, who's only drafted typically pitchers, he's picked Mick Abel, Andrew Painter. He's picked 3 hitters, an outfielder, Justin Crawford, Aiden Miller, and now Nori. And Nori has a story of a dad. I keep saying that because I feel like it's like my head. The 19-year-old's dad, let me read this correctly. The 19-year-old has a connection to Kyle Schwarber. His grandfather, Fred Nori, was an infielder that played 2 seasons professionally with the Cubs and the Mets minor league systems, then became an assistant coach at Indiana University, where he recruited none other than Kyle Schwarber. And his father, Micah, is an assistant coach with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So the Nori family has a history in sports themselves. And I know Barbara was mentioning how they identified him over a year ago. He's got tools, baseball skill, top shelf defense in center field, an advanced hitting ability, and an amazing person that has a lot of potential. That's what we hear from everybody. So excited to see what that 19-year-old is, how he can progress. He did have a 4.77, 5.75, 7.48 slash line with a 1.323 OPS, 52 runs scored, 23 extra base hits, and 32 walks, 20 stolen bases in 39 games in 2024 for Northville, leading them to a championship, their first ever in 115 years. And then their second pick of the night was none other than Griffin Burkholder. Just some numbers on him. The number 63 overall pick out of Freedom High School in Virginia. He's 6'2", 195. I probably could have gave Nori's stats too. He's 5'10", 190. But Burkholder, 6'2", 195, a right-handed hitter with a 4.53, 5.97, 8.30 slash line. He went 24 for 53 with 6 doubles, 4 triples, 2 home runs with a 1.427 OPS his senior year. Another high schooler, another young talent. And they felt for Barber that he's just, icing on the cake for them. They said he's an unbelievably strong, fast, and good athlete, good baseball player who can hit and hit with power, and the type of player they always have interest in. So the Phillies do have their next pick, number 100 actually overall, today in the 3rd round. They then have 1 pick in each of the final 17 rounds, the 27th pick for each of those. That'll conclude on Tuesday. So the draft isn't overly exciting, but you never know. Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, Andrew Painter, not too long ago, we were talking about them coming in, and now we're talking about them as untouchable. So just some names to keep an eye on for the future, because you never know how these players are going to turn out.
I mean, listen, there's so many things about the Major League Baseball draft that make it less, I shouldn't say less important, because clearly important. Make it less intriguing is probably the word that I should use. Primarily because these guys are not going to be at the highest level.
Right.
Unless you get a Nolan Shanaway who just explodes through the ranks and was probably about as close to Major League ready as anybody I've seen in a long time coming out of Virginia. Now, granted, he's really struggled this year, but last year, bat the ball type of guy, wasn't a power guy, but you're just a flat out contact hitter who you knew was going to transition upwards quickly to becoming a major league player. And it's why he was an Angel by July last year.
Right.
Or by August last year. But more times than not, especially with high school selections, you're looking at this guy Dante Nori specifically was selected on July 14th of 2024. To be in the major leagues, you're probably talking about July 14th of 2028.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people just let me know when he gets to double A, or let me know when he gets to high A type of situation. The second thing is, as I mentioned with Chase, the Major League Baseball draft is an absolute crapshoot because you are selecting players who are I believe Major League Baseball is the furthest gap between selection of a draft pick and being on a major league field in any sport. Because if you think, again, it goes back to they're not going to be here for a while. You go to the NFL, your first round pick in the NFL not only is going to make the team, not only is going to probably be a prominent role, if you're not good, might be a starter on your team.
Yeah.
NBA, same
very
thing.
True.
There are certain players. Now, this year's NBA draft wasn't very good, but there's a lot of draft classes where they're plug and play guys. Now, Reed Sheppard might be plug and play after what we're seeing in the summer league, but They're plug and play guys that are going to be in the starting lineup, might be a 6th or 7th man to start their time.
Mm-hmm.
The NHL, there's a little bit of a gap. Some guys do go right to the NHL, but some go to the AHL and whatnot. But Major League Baseball, there's 5 different rounds of minor leagues to get through.
Yeah.
And that's cut down from what it used to be. Mm-hmm. And I say 5 only on the side of the American amateur draft. There is, of course, international, developmental leagues as well. So if you think about it, you have to go through, they're either going to go through the Florida Complex League,
mm-hmm.
the Directional Camp, the Florida Complex League. Then you get to high A, then you get to double A, then you might go to triple A if you're not ready for the majors yet. There's a potential of 5 steps along the way to get to Major League Baseball. So it becomes a little less exciting, come draft day. The next step, you've just took a 19-year-old kid who has primarily played baseball against other 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, most of which are not going pro.
Nope.
Also, you have a metal bat. There's a lot of things in becoming involved.
And like Flyers in 7 is saying, it is wild that you start proving it after you get drafted.
Right.
So 28 of the top 100 prospects in this year's class were picked in the first round. And so there's a lot that are still remaining on the board, so we'll see what happens. There was some history made as Travis Bazzana was drafted first overall by the Cleveland Guardians, their first time ever having the number 1 pick, and the first time ever a player born in Australia was taken top of the board. I also saw, I think it was in total 8 different players that were drafted were black players. So we're seeing more diversity. We're also seeing some change in the talent pool of who's being drafted.